Good morning, everyone. As always, welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Rich. I'm the channel host, and today we're going to be talking about how to create a 360 virtual tour outdoors. So we're all very familiar with doing 360 interior tours for businesses, for real estate. People are interested in taking walkthroughs of the homes for sale or the homes under construction. But there's a lot that we can do outdoors with 360-degree virtual tours as well. Now, I utilize a Mavic 2 Pro for doing some of my aerial virtual tours, and I use a Theta Z1 for most of my interior tours. But so here's the Ricoh Theta Z1 right here. And yesterday, what I decided to do was to start working on a project for one of our regular clients, Pointer Rocks RV Campground. And I wanted to start building this year's virtual tour. So each year we do updates for their website. And one of the things that we've been doing the past couple of years is including virtual tours of their park. They have a lower loop, which I'm circling here with my mouse, and they've got an upper loop area. Yesterday, we took the time to do the upper loop area, and we have to go back and do the lower loop area as well. As you can see on screen right now, we've got some markers, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes, but I'm not done with this presentation yet, so I wanted to bring you into this to talk about how we were doing this setup. So let's change the screen, shall we, so that you can see everything. And so I'm going to go ahead, swap screens really quick. So I've already started setting up the Kula tour. We're going to take a step back afterward and look at that. But let's start from the beginning. So we went to the client location yesterday, and we brought Theta Z1, and we brought a Bushman monopod. Now, one of the things that happens in northern Arizona during the springtime is we experience a lot of winds. Recently, we had a forest fire right to the south of us. The winds were causing some major problems in getting that fire under control. The winds also caused some major problems for drone operators when we're seeing too high speed winds. So I decided let's go ahead and do our ground-based 360-degree virtual tour for Pointer Rocks. And even though we were ground-based and using the monopod, I ran into some problems just because of how much wind was going on. So we shot, let me see, I shot in total, I'm just opening a folder for you, and I shot 26 frames in total. So 26 360-degree images. And we had to walk through the park. We were competing with sunlight and shadows and wind. So one of the decisions I made up front for using the Theta Z1 and the Bushman monopod was that I was going to use the time shift plugin on the Theta Z1. The time shift plugin lets you take part of the image, so the front facing lens, and then the back facing lens. So I literally hit the shutter button, it takes a shot out of the front, and then it tells me to move. So I move to the other side of the monopod, and then it takes the second photo. Now, this allows me to keep my hand really close to the Bushman monopod so that if a good wind picks up, I'm right there to catch it. And it might be the case that if it does pick up and I have to catch it, that I've got to reshoot that image. So normally I do save everything into Lightroom when it comes to standard images in 360s. And using the time shift plugin, it does output, let's double click this first one here. It does output a finished and stitched 360-degree image. So there we go. This is just looking at the preview, and this is not done. This is not fully edited or anything. We're going to take a look at that together. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top here, and we're going to take a look at this one as well. And as you can see, this is kind of flat, a little pastel feeling, not the best. We had this on fully automatic settings here. We didn't do something like a multi-bracket because once again, we're competing with the wind. And then that monopod does shake around a little bit in the winds. So instead, we went with some automatic modes here. So we use that time shift plugin. We use the standard HDR capture for this that comes on the Theta Z1. And I was actually doing this manually, clicking on the Theta Z1. So I wasn't even using my iPhone to control this. My hand was right there because of the breeze. So let's double check this one again. So not the greatest photo in the world, but also not the worst photo in the world when you start assembling a 360. I'm going to close the preview. And so instead of putting this into Lightroom this time around, we decided, well, I decided, Jody works on these with me as well. So when I say we, I actually mean we. But I made the decision yesterday not to use Lightroom and to just use Affinity Photo, because Affinity Photo is one of those tools that I really like using for 360s because I can view the 360 in the editor. Let's see what I'm talking about here. So I'm just going to drag this down onto Affinity Photo. Hello, Affinity. Good morning. And so here we go. We've got our 360 image. We've got shadow for me. And as you can see, my hand, the shadow of my hand is actually reaching out to that monopod as well. So I was being very, very cautious with this. Now we can fix the problems that are here, but number one, I'm not really too keen on the overall look of the image. And up in Affinity Photo's left-hand side, we do have a couple of tools. We've got the photo persona, the liquify persona, and we've got the develop persona, which is our raw editor basically. And then we have the tone mapping persona. So right now we're letting the tone mapping persona load up, and we're gonna see, ooh, wow, that's kind of overblown there too. So over on the right hand side, I'm going to just zoom right in here. Under tone compression, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop this down by 50%. And this is looking much better to me. And this is a normal day during the spring in Arizona, northern Arizona. Hyper blue skies, missing clouds. We do get great clouds into monsoon season, but many of our typical days here are these super blown out skies. The sun's somewhere in the sky, so you're always competing with it. And you're always competing with the shadows here too. Now, as you can see over on the left-hand side for this tone mapping persona, they've got a couple of suggested ones. And I made one yesterday. You can make your own presets for high sun, no clouds. And so that's the one I just clicked on. And let's look back over here. I had that tone compression down to 50%. And then I also made a change um, with the black point on this as well. Or I'm sorry, not the black point, on the vibrance. We pushed the vibrance up 50% as well. You can see that right here. So just two moves for us on this particular one. Tone compression at 50% and then a little more vibrance. This is looking closer to the scene. It's a little richer as well. And people are kind of more focused on looking around in the 360 virtual tours rather than really looking into the color quality and things. You don't want something that's ghastly and the white balance is way off, but you do want something that's eye-catching. So once I'm done with that, with the tone mapping persona, I go ahead and I say apply to it. So now that's been applied, and we're back into the photo persona. The next thing I want to do, this is the reason why I use Affinity for this so often, is under layers, we can do an equal rectangular projection. So let's go ahead and click on that. And basically now we are in the 360 viewer. So as we're taking a look around here, we're seeing the entire thing. There's the sun in the sky, and that's where it was for the morning. And we're right at the top upper loop. So when people are driving in after checking in, if they're on the upper loop, they're going to be driving up this driveway. We'll be doing some more images of the driveway and then the lower loop and the office later this week. But so overall, this is looking pretty good to me as a 360. The one problem we have is when we look down, remember, it captured some of that shadow. Not much I could do about it, but one of the nice things is we can jump right into editing with Affinity here. So over on the left-hand side, I'm going to zoom right in here, and I'm going to use the in-painting tool brush. So that is actually going to do a replacement for us. So I'm just very quickly and very sloppy, by the way. You don't have to be too picky with this, especially when this is just looking down at the ground. But let's go ahead and fix that one. There we go. And that looks a lot better. Now I'm going back over to the left-hand column and I'm grabbing the Move tool. And after I click the Move tool, right up here on the top bar, we have Edit Live Projection again. So I can click on Edit Live Projection. When I do that, we're back to viewing that live again and taking a look around here. So this one is looking pretty good to me. Like I said, we took 26 photos. So the next photo is actually going to be facing in this direction as well. We're walking around the park in a clockwise fashion. So I know exactly where I'm at. Now, one of the things, 9 times out of 10, we can also get our GPS information out of here that can help us make a mapped area later. So I did make a map for this place as well. But because I was using the time shift plugin and I wasn't using my iPhone, which would have given it GPS information, all of these images are lacking GPS information. So when I add the images to the map, I have to do it manually by hand and guesstimate about where I took the shot. So there's one problem there. Now, once I'm done with this and I'm satisfied with this, you need to pay attention to this part too. I'm going to go back up to layer. We're going to go down to live projection and we're going to remove that live projection. So there we go. There's the flat 360 once again. You need to do this before you export this image. And I say export for a very specific reason. If I just hit save on this right now, it's going to save this as an Affinity Photo file. I can't upload Affinity Photo files to Kula. That's the 360 viewer that I personally use. So I have to get it back out of the live projection. And then we go to File, Export. So we must export this one. And as you can see, Affinity offers us a lot of export options. I'm going to go with the JPEG. We're going with this full size. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Export. And now on Export, I have it set to my desktop. This is a great place to do this because I was dragging these right into Kula afterward. So I'm going to save this out to the desktop. And I'm just going to make one change. We're going to call this number 1 and upper loop bath. That way I know because the shower and bathhouses are also here. So I'm going to hit save on this now. Remember, I used the export. You've got to remember to use the export when you're using Affinity Photo. So I'm going to save that. And let's go ahead and minimize Affinity Photo now. And you will see right here that we have number 1, upper loop bath. So if I double click on this, you're going to see, all right, so that's the image that we made together in Affinity Photo. We cleared out that monopod shadow there. We cleared out my shadow as well. So I'm going to close this one down. And just to take it on to the next level here, we're going to do a second one for you. So we're done with this one. I'm just going to hit Command W to close this. I'm not going to save it as an Affinity Photo. And instead, I'm going to minimize this. We're going to grab that number 2, drop it right into Affinity Photo, and we're going to do the same set of moves that we did in the last one. So first off, I'm going to go up here to the upper left, and we're going to do the tone mapping persona. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to use my saved one, the saved one that I had created yesterday, the high sun, no clouds. So we're just waiting for the tone mapping to finish here. It's a little troubling to me that it seems to like pre-tone map everything. I'm going to hit the high sun one, and this is the one that I created yesterday. You'll see once again over here on the right hand side, tone compression is set to 50%, and I did push the vibrance up by 50% as well. Let's zoom this back out. So this is looking ready to go. Up in the upper left corner again, since we're still in the tone mapping, I need to click apply. So there we go. I've applied that tone mapping. And the next step simply is going to be to go down to live projection again, do the equirectangular. Look at that. We've got another 360. So our last shot was over here. Oh, and we have a bit of a seam line going on in here. So the seam line is noticeable, but I can correct the seam line when I'm utilizing Kula. So I'm going to use Kula to correct the seam lines. And so a couple popped up here and there yesterday, but they are pretty easy to address. So don't worry too much about that. Now, in looking around here, if we take a look down once again, there we go. We've got that shadow problem with the time shift again because of where the sun was. Fortunately, we can grab that in-painting brush. We can get rid of me holding the monopod there. And there we go. Let's go ahead and release that. And if there's any other items that you want to address around the image, you can. So I just popped one more area right there. Now I'm going back to the Move tool, that little arrow tool, and I'm clicking on Edit Live Projection again. So we already do know that we've got that seam line there. So we'll have to deal with that, and we'll deal with that in Kula. And then taking a look around in here, this is looking pretty good to me. So I do like the fact that Affinity gives us this 360 viewer that allows us to pan around and take a look at the image before we commit all of our changes. Now, I'm satisfied with this, so I'm going to go back to Layer, Live Projection, and remove the live projection. With the live projection removed, now we can take the next step, which is exporting. Once again, as I said, if you click on Save, this is going to save it as an Affinity Photo file, not as a JPEG for us. We want this to be a JPEG for uploading to our 360 viewer online. So I'm going to go down here to Export once again. We've got JPEG picked already. I've kept the full size settings. I'm going to go to Export, and we will call this 2 and North Bath. So you can give any kind of label you want, and I'll be relabeling these afterward in Kula as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save once again, and that was from the export. So let's minimize Affinity Photo, and let's take a look. There's that saved file for us. So all right, we're good to go. So basically what I spent the rest of yesterday doing was going through and editing each and every one of these images with the changes. So these are the original images here, and then the changed images we saved out to the desktop, and then we uploaded to Kula. So I wanted to pull Kula up here now, and I might have to re-log into it because it does time you out if you're inactive for a while. One of the other things I'd like to point out, so in the Kula presentation, we can put maps, we can put still images, and then we can do reference links. So each of these, you'll see site 84, site 85. These are a little too close together, so I need to go deal with them by hand. But as we can see, 56, 56F, 56A. And if I click on one of these, I'm going to click on one of these, it brings me to that particular scene. So we've got a little bit of color issue here, and that's because of some of the dappled lighting. It created a small issue on the camera lens, so we can also take care of that as well. But so just taking a look around in here, I have not put all the links from scene to scene yet. That's going to be one of the next steps that I'll be doing. So just taking a look through this, down on the lower left-hand side, because I did tell it there was a plan map, if I click on that, it brings me back to that map. So where did that map come from? So I'm just pulling this up really quick to show you this mapped area. So this didn't come from Google or anything. This actually came from QGIS. And I utilize QGIS for a lot of our drone flights. So pre-planning flights, and then also overlaying geotiffs, creating shape files, and a couple other things. So I utilized QGIS yesterday to set up a mapped area where I could put some of these hot buttons for both the upper loop and lower loop, so that then people could click through, if they wanted to jump down to the south end and didn't want to have to follow through each of the image links to the next image link, they could do that. So that was one of the extras that were popping in here, and I might have to change this map a little bit more. So you can, in fact, do these maps with Kula. All right, what I want to do next, I'm going to hit the close button on this to make sure that I'm logged in. Looks like I'm logged in. So I'm going to go back down to Pointer Rocks, and we're going to edit that tour. So one of the things I did was I got all of the images together. I edited the images with Affinity Photo, and then I turned on Kula and uploaded the images. So this is what it looks like when you first get into editing a 360 tour with Kula. So I drag the images in, and you'll see all of the images are labeled. So it's going to make it easy on me to make those map points or to connect image to image as well. So as you'll see here, we're scrolling down, and each and every one of these labeled and in order for me. Now, like I said, I can change the labels later, because when someone looks at 23 site 70, they're going to go, what's 23? That was just the order I was shooting in. Fortunately, updating the labels on these is very, very simple to do. So once I've gotten all of these ready, I hit the save button here, and then we can go ahead and exit. And it does bring us into our tour with the images in order. So we've got the Pointer Rocks map right here. Next one is number 1, Upper Loop Bath, number 2, Site 84, number 3, Site 85, and so on. So we can actually make our way through this entire location. So as you can see, we're into the park, we're looking around, and we can also set our zoom levels on this if we want to. And we can also do things like here we've got one of the small seams again. I can go into the editor, and scrolling on down in here, we do have a hide stitching line if visible. So it's helped us a little bit with it. And probably I might have to go back through and do a little more cleanup in Affinity before bringing these in. So I'll make a list for myself of those that need to be taken out and just fixed in Affinity. But overall, walking through these, let me go to the next one. Oh, let me save and move on from the next one here. And let's take a look back to see, yeah, we've got a light seam line in that one as well. So I will be making a list for myself a little later. Overall, though, with the exception of running into some of those seam lines, overall, these images are looking really nice. It does give potential guests an idea of the type of sites they can stay in, the type of sites they can request through the online reservation system. And yes, we are getting into the springtime, so we do have some green popping out here. Still very dry here, so we are experiencing a long-term drought in northern Arizona and a lot of the other southwestern states as well. So sometimes not as green as it could be. We'll see what monsoon season brings us. So one of the next things that we're going to need to do, let me hit save here, and let me go back to that first image at our starting point. So we have the map. There's the map with buttons set up for us right now. Since I'm in the edit mode, it is showing all of the labels. The labels are hidden in the main mode, so people aren't going to be overwhelmed by this. But so people can follow along this map, but the second thing they can do, let's go over to number 1, because I know where I would like to put number 2. So I am going to drag the second image out because it's out here. And do I want to add a backlink from from number 2, site 84? So I'm making a link forward of where I am. And it's also offering to make a backlink for me so that people can turn around and retrace their steps. I'm going to go ahead and say yes to that. Now, number 1, it selected this very small marker, and we can change that. Over on the right-hand side, Kula gives us a lot of tools. So an absolute ton of tools. I want to change that icon. So you can add your own icons. So I do a lot of RV park work, if you can't tell. So I have RV and camping icons as well. But I'm going to go over to the built-in assets. And what we're going to do is we're going to select one of the arrows. So there's the arrow right there. It's very small. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of that arrow. And let's bring it to 100% width, and we can set it right there. And now I can hit the save button, and we can also close this. So there we go. There's our first marker moving into the park. Let's go ahead and click on that marker. Now, as you may recall, I did tell it to insert one from site 84 back to the bathrooms. So if we turn ourselves around here, and there's that crazy seam line, if we turn ourselves around here, there we go. Let's go into the edit mode, and we've got that little one right there. I'm going to move this out here, and we're going to go ahead and change the image to this one. And we already know that we did that at 100% on the last one. I'm going to hit save. I'm also going to scroll down here back to the photo tab. I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to hide that stitch line. So it will help it out a little bit afterward, but it's still not going to be perfection there. So one of the challenges, that high sun kind of a day, means that I'm going to have to deal with some additional editing down the road as well. So I've hit save. I'm going to hit close, and I'm going to click on this, and it's going to bring us back to that first one. So we do have a lot of other tools in Kula as well. So we have our photo tools where we can put the description, we can set it to public or private, we can tell it what heading it needs to start out at. We can use different filters in here that they've included. We can do HDR tone mapping here. No, not going to do that. We can increase our sharpness as well, maybe just to 5%. So I need to go through and change all of these things. We can also change the zoom settings here. So we can zoom way in, way out, or we can restrict the amount of zoom that people can do. So maybe we don't want them going too far with their zoom, and maybe it starts looking a little pixelated. So we could pull that in to not let them zoom in so far. Also, we can change the pitch limit. So how high can I tilt up here and look into the sun? We can change the pitch limit. So as you see, as I'm doing this, if I change the pitch limit to 0, I can't go up and down. I can only go side to side. Now, if I dial that pitch limit back, let's take a look now. So now we can look up into the sky. Maybe we don't want people staring into the sun. So we could change that pitch limit. I'm going to go ahead and we'll go with the full pitch limit right now. And scrolling down here, if we felt this was off level, we do have a level correction as well. We can do a vertical align as well. We can make the location public. Now, this would usually buy me something because I've got GPS information in the images. In the case of this tour, as I said at the beginning, I wasn't using the iPhone to connect. I was doing things manually right on the camera. So that means I didn't have GPS information with me there. You can also make the photo data public, and we can also hide that stitch line again. So like I said, I'm gonna have to go back through, take a look. I know that a couple of these do have stitch lines, so I'm not fully finished yet, but we will have this finished out today. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and save this one, and let's do the same thing again. So I'm going to save, close, and now I'm going to follow that marker to the next location. So behind me are the restrooms and the showers, and also that starting area right there. And in front of me is our third one. So let me say right about here, let's go ahead and drag our third. So I'm just dragging the image on here, by the way. So I'm dragging it right to there. And do you want to add a backlink? So back to the other one. Yes, we can do that. So I'm going to say, okay. And there we go. It's got the nice big arrow again for us. And I'm going to put that right down about there. And so let's go ahead and turn ourselves around really quick because we should also see that other arrow back. We do. All right, so we can move forward. I'm going to hit save. We can go through the photo tab, the add-on tab, or the tiny planet tab as well for additional features. But what I'm going to do here, hello, save button. We're going to close and we're going to move on to that next one. Now it asked us if we wanted to create a backlink, and we said yes to that backlink. And there we go. That's the backlink to the previous one. Maybe all we'd like to do is move this down a little bit, save, and it does look to me now that I'm going to be doing a little more seam line repair here as well. So I will take a look through all these. Let me go back to photo, scroll down, and let's hide the seam line as best we can. That did a better job on that one. So these do not have to be perfection. Well, they do in some instances. When you're doing interior shots, when you're doing walkthroughs on a $2 million house, absolutely, we're not going to be using the time shift on the Theta Z1. We'll be using one of the bracketed functions or the dual fisheye plugin to get the most out of it and to keep everything seaming up perfectly. These were automatically generated as JPEGs just with the time shift. So these are going to be a little less than perfect sometimes because we're letting the camera do all the decisions here versus doing the bracketing where we can make some more decisions because we're working with an HDR. But when we start looking into some of our JPEG 360s, we find out pretty quickly for ourselves that we're going to need to do a little more fine tuning, probably back in Affinity Photo, but maybe we can deal a little more of this. By the way, in looking around Affinity Photo, you've already kind of seen some of this where I've got the pitch limit and all these things. So we do have a couple of tabs. We've got the photo tab. This is where we can add an image in here, text, or a hotspot. Like I said before, there's our public setting. There's our thumbnail. We've got some filters, HDR tone mapping. And let's go back up to the top here. Nothing for the add-on right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit save with this. And so nothing that we're doing as an add-on for the moment. And we're not doing a tiny planet either. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one. To get back in, by the way, is the edit button right here. And if I close out of this and I just want to go look at the main tour, I'm going to hit close right there. And what we can do is actually, I'll go back to edit the tour really fast just so you can see a couple other things as well. And then we'll jump back over to it. But so we can rearrange all these images. We can bring in flat images as well. We can also link video links into the images as well. So we'll be linking this to a video. But under tour settings, we have a couple of things as well. So we have a public setting. We could add background audio because I am on the Pro plan. We can have a transition type between each one, so crossfade. And then the menu icon label is a folded map. That's what we were seeing down in the lower corner. We could put this in walkthrough menu so that wherever you click in walkthrough menu, that's where it directs you to. If we leave walkthrough menu off, it's going to direct you to the next image where that image was saved. I'm sorry, the walkthrough um, allows us to point in the direction of our links. The click anywhere is the one where we can click anywhere that's close to it, and it will bring you facing that direction. So sometimes in interiors, you'll want to do a click anywhere. That way people can move themselves around and through. In the case of this one for now, I'm going to leave the click anywhere alone. I'm going to hit that save. I'm going to hit exit. Here we are back in our setup for our editor. By the way, the other way to get to edit tour is right down here. You can click on edit tour and you can click on grid view. Let's zoom that in just so that you can see that. So what I'll be doing for the remainder of my morning, well, not the remainder of my morning, for probably the next hour is going back through, checking all of these, linking these, finding those that really need some seam editing, and then I'll go back and replace them. So I'll go back into Affinity and do some light editing. But so I'm not complete here, and I didn't want to take you through the whole process. We're not going to drag and drop every single one of these in here. That's going to get old and boring really fast for you. I can arrow through just so you can take a look at a couple others. By the way, you're welcome to stop by the Kula website, and you can check out my channel on Kula, and you can see some of the other 360 virtual tours that we've done over the years. So right here, I'll be repointing where this one loads. Loaded looking at the trash can. We've got a couple of the RVs. We've also got site numbers in here. So site number 70 is right here. And I even labeled the image site 70. And so now we can move right along here and click into the next one. So not every site was labeled because some of them are close to each other, and that's okay. So we do have things that we can zoom in on. So site 74 right there. So as you can see, the weekend was just wrapping up and the park was emptying out. This was all done on a Monday. So all the folks up from the valley, getting away from the hotter temperatures, came up to Point of Rocks. And for weekdays, well, I shouldn't say that. They're basically packed year round at this point. So Point of Rocks is one of the most popular campgrounds in the Prescott. Well, it is the most popular campground in the Prescott area. So everyone wants to be in the Granite Dells, beautiful rock formations, great hiking trails, kayaking, mountain biking, e-bike rentals, you name it for outdoor activities, you can probably do it here in Prescott. All right, everybody, I hope that this simple how-to helps you get started in thinking about doing outdoor virtual tours. There are a couple of challenges. You know, if we're having wind, if we don't have flat surfaces, we've got a lot of things to work around. And if we're using one of these automatic setups, we might have a little more editing to do afterward than if we had used doing an HDR DNG with a dual fisheye. That sounds kind of crazy because with the dual fisheye plugin, we're snapping 5 or 7 images. But the thing is, when we bring them together in Lightroom and then use the Ricoh Theta Z1 stitcher, we have a lot more flexibility in getting everything blended just right. So even though a JPEG is quick and dirty, you're in, you're out, and you don't have too much editing to do, when it comes to the 360s, if you're dealing with seaming, if you're dealing with shadows on the ground, having to replace all those shadows, all that stuff does start requiring additional editing. Overall, though, satisfied with the color quality, satisfied with the walkthrough and showing the different area. And as you can see, so I did wipe out almost everything, but unfortunately, I left just a bit of the monopod. You want to know how many people are going to notice that? Probably 0. So I'll be leaving that one in there. And when we pan around back here, we've got that slight seam line once again. That one is not horrible. I'm going to go in, make sure I'm under the photo tab, scroll all the way down, hide stitching. And yep, that really did a good job for that one. So I don't think people are going to notice that one in a big way. And by the way, when I said that I'll be doing some updates in Affinity, when those updates are done, right down here, I can replace the image that we're currently working with. So when I make my list of those that need to be fixed for the seam lines, I can pop them in really easy to take the place of the one that had the problematic seam line and introduce the newly edited one from Affinity Photo. All right, everyone, I'm going to get back to work. I'm going to finish this tour off, and then I've got another video that I need to do today. As always, thanks for stopping in and hanging out. Be sure to like and subscribe down below. Be sure to check out classes.azdrone.net, as we do have several videos in our classes for doing 360-degree virtual tours. One of my favorite ones is a walk through the Tiz Art Gallery in downtown Prescott, a beautiful historic 3-story building with a really great gallery on the first floor, special shows on the second floor, and then a whole banquet style hall on the third floor. So if you'd like to check out that tour class, go to classes.azdrone.net, check out all our classes. You'll find that down toward the bottom of our class listings. And there are also a couple of free previews for that class on classes.azdrone.net. By the way, everyone, we still are running a special on my class bundle. And if you head on over to classes.azdrone.net, check out our class bundle. Normal list price is $250 for that whole set of 13 classes, over 40 hours of class material. And in there, in that whole class bundle, we do have several 360 classes as well as our drone classes. By the way, if you want to knock $150 off of that whole package, use the coupon code OUCH, all capital letters, OUCH, because that was my response to my root canal a couple weeks ago when I did the first sale on this. All right, everybody, we'll see you again really soon. Thanks for stopping in.